Now we continue our 2014 candidate sit-downs. Diedrich Allen off camera. On camera, Travis Couture. This time you're running for 35th District State Senator.
That's correct.
And you're for the Republican Party, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now take a few minutes to tell everybody about yourself, your background, why you're running, and why you feel you're the best candidate for the position.
Well, Diedrich, thanks for having me to do this interview again. I'm Travis Couture. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I served on the USS Alabama and Nebraska. They're both submarines, so I'm a submarine sailor, a bubblehead. And I currently work for Lockheed Martin and operate two small ventures, two small businesses. And I'm really excited to run for office this year for the state senate because I think that we need a new direction forward. I really don't think that we can keep electing the same politicians year after year and expect them to pull us out of the messes that they helped to create. I think it's time to push for a new way forward, and I think I could provide the leadership that this district has been lacking for a long time, for over 20 years. I just found out the other day I would be the first Republican, if elected, I'd be the first Republican elected in the 35th District Senate seat, and I would also be the youngest. So I think that's kind of a neat little thing to have. I think this district is absolutely hungry for economic freedom. We have some extremely high unemployment, and businesses are struggling to get by, and this is a bedroom community. People travel outside the district to go work, but they live here. Mason County is a beautiful place, and I think we can highlight some of those assets that the 35th District has. I think people are hungry for their civil liberties to be protected. Year after year, there seems to be encroachments in Olympia on our civil liberties, and I'm a pure constitutionalist, so I stand to fight for those civil liberties. I think that I always stand for principle before party and people before politics. I'm not a career politician. There's a lot of people here that are career politicians. There's a lot of corruption going on in Olympia, and I think the people understand that. And it's time to just create a new, fresh start. And I'm a statesman, not a politician, and I think together we can all rebuild a fresh start for working Washington.
Okay, Travis, hate to do this to you, but can I get you to slide over just a little bit? Because you're kind of crowding over there to I guess that would be your right. So, if that's better, thank you. All right, now we'll get into the questions. Everyone that says that their top priority is fully funding education. How do you plan to reach that court-ordered mandate, and can it be done without sacrificing other programs? If cuts have to be made, how would you determine what to cut?
Well, I think that we will have to cut if we want to meet the mandate. Our paramount duty in the Washington State Constitution is education. And so we do have to fully fund it. There's a lot of reasons why it's not fully funded. There's a lot of unfunded mandates, and the bureaucracy in the education system is really top-heavy. I think that you can't just throw more money at a problem and expect to fix it. I used to tell people that I could throw $20 on my lawn, but it doesn't mow the grass. So I think we have to look at reforming the system, and I think that if the education system public education system we have now is so burdened, then we need to start looking at alternative choices and giving parents and families and children more choices in education. The voters in 2012 overwhelmingly voted for charter schools, and even though I didn't think the law went far enough, and there were some things within the law that I don't necessarily agree with, I think the spirit and intent of what people voted for was school choice. So I think the district and the state is hungry for school choice. But as far as fully funding education and the McCleary and we have to put forward into it, I don't think there's only two ways out. You have to cut services or you have to raise taxes. And I think in a fragile economy that we have now, raising taxes would be disastrous to Washington and especially rural places like the 35th District. So I do think that we need to cut some unfunded mandates. I have a whole plan set up. It's on my website, www.traviscouture.com, for K through 12 and higher education, and exactly how I would go forward with reforming these things. But I think that we need to definitely get out there and start promoting more school choice. I think that we need to start looking at the bureaucracy of the school system, and I just think that it's sad that the entire state budget is held hostage so we could pad the pockets of the teachers union. And I think people are starting to realize that. But we're going to have to cut from state government to get this done. And that means some people are going to have to suffer because of it. This was not my decision. This is the Supreme Court's decision. And the legislature is to uphold the Supreme Court decision. And I think that we need to just start thinking outside the box with education and start looking for a new way forward. I never advocate, and I take a pledge to never vote to raise taxes if elected. And I don't think that I'm a free market guy, so I don't think that's a good idea anyways. But there's definitely things that we could do. We need to fund education first, put it in its own separate line item, and then we could fight for everything that comes after that.
Transportation is another priority, and there has been a lot of talk about the need to reform the State Department of Transportation. How would you accomplish that reform?
Well, the Department of Transportation here is just absolutely messed up. I mean, we got pontoons that don't float and bridges that are crumbling. We have a $1 billion tunnel boring machine, Big Bertha, that fails to work it's afraid of its own shadow. And we're just seeing failure after failure after failure with the DOT. One of the most crazy things is that we get charged sales tax on stuff that the state does for transportation projects. I think that's double tax on the people, because in the end it's the people who pay that. So I think that there's many, many things that we could do. And in last session, both sides introduced transportation bills, including my opponent's Majority Coalition Caucus, Tim Sheldon's Majority Coalition Caucus, who was a proposal that they sent forth, and Jay Inslee and the Democrats' proposal that they set forth. Both of them would increase the gas tax, except for Tim Sheldon's proposal would increase the gas tax more than what Jay Inslee wanted, and also would have more spending than what Jay Inslee wanted. So I think that that's definitely the wrong way forward. We'd have some of the highest gas taxes in the state, or some of the highest gas taxes in the country, excuse me. And right now, when I go to fill up my tank, it's over $4, and I think that people are struggling, and they have to be able to get to work, they have to be able to bring their kids to school, and many other things. And it just puts a big damper on our economy, and especially businesses like trucking industry, anything that involves freight. They operate on slim margins, maybe sometimes making 5 cents off the dollar. And when you want to raise the gas tax 12.5 cents. It really starts to, hurt that fragile growth and that fragile economy that we have. And I think that before you spend more money and before you raise taxes on transportation, you have to reform the system. So what the proposals that they're telling us right now is that we want to raise taxes and spending, and then we'll get the reforms later. And I think that the whole point of reforming the system is so you don't have to have the extra spending and you don't have to have the extra taxes. So I think they're starting out from the wrong premise. And I think that if I was elected, we would have a different kind of majority in the state Senate, and we would fight. I'm fighting to lower the gas tax because I think that would be better. But there's a lot of things, especially in the 35th District, we could do. We're still waiting almost 50 years for a Belfair bypass. There's a lot of projects around here that have not been completed or need to be done for a long time now. We're not getting those, and especially here in Mason County, we receive less money than we put in, and places like King County, they get more money than they put in. And so it's finding that right representation for your district that's going to bring you back your investment. But right now we've had the same leadership for decades, and it hasn't done us any good. So we have to stop making the same mistakes over and over again, which is voting for the same politicians over and over again. Einstein once said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We have to vote a new way. We have to choose new leadership in Olympia, and we have to send people to Olympia that really represent the people, not just the big unions and the big corporate interests. A lot of them out-of-state corporate interests. And if you look at my campaign, I only receive money from people. I don't receive money from big corporations or from unions or from big fat cat lobbyists. And, the state actually proved when they when they gave a big tax break and a big regulation break to Boeing, that a mega billion-dollar corporation like Boeing has to have this to succeed in Washington State. Well, if a mega billion-dollar corporation has to have their taxes and regulations cut just to operate here, then logic should follow that all businesses, that would be good, not just the ones with the biggest high-paid lobbyists. So there's a lot of things that we can do to make it better here for transportation in the 35th District and in Washington State. And I don't believe in that, the Republicans or the Democrats, one side spends the money better than the other. We have a lot of things like light rail and pedestrian walkways and HOV lanes and mass transit. We don't really need those things in the 35th. It's a rural community, so but we do need our roads, and we do need our Belfair bypass, and we need to be able to have trucks come through here on Highway 3 and 106 and 101. So we have to be able to reinvest our money in things that actually help our district.
Okay, Travis, you did answer a couple of my questions already that are further down, but let's get into the next one, which what are the top transportation needs in the 35th District?
Right. I think I'm from Belfair, and I see the traffic every day, and we definitely need a Belfair bypass. And with the monolithic Belfair sewer that we're really in debt on, we're really in the hole, and it doesn't seem like there's a way out. If there is a way out for the Belfair sewer, it's to punch in a Belfair bypass, and it's to allow sewer hookups all along the bypass and have a little economic growth. That's growing our way out of that mess is the only way we could save ourselves from that mess, a mess in which my opponent actually helped to create yet again. So Belfair bypass is a huge one. We need to have increased freight mobility. Widening Highway 3 is a good idea, but I don't think it goes far enough. So there's a lot of different things that we could do here. I think that when you look at something like the Belfair bypass, and here's where kind of government goes wrong, is they want to put that money inside of the transportation budget, and it never gets done. That's why we've been waiting 50 years. The DOT is absolutely broken, but people that spend any time in Olympia or follow the process know that if you were to put the money inside of the capital budget and pass the capital budget, then you could give the money to the county and they could punch in the road with a lot less things hampering them down.
My next question was about this gas tax, and you obviously answered that. You're not in support of a gas tax.
Absolutely. So. Will never vote, never, ever, that's a promise, vote to raise taxes, and that includes the gas tax. And I think I'm the only candidate that's looking at reducing the gas tax, because I think that putting more money back in your pocket stimulates the economy, because no one spends your money like you do. I think that when government spends money, there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. And I don't think that there's a lot of people, Democrat or Republican or independent, that would disagree with me on that. So, I mean, it doesn't take, we had a capital budget, not this year, but last year, that wanted to spend almost $250,000 on a Russian statue of a Russian ship that sank off the coast in Washington near Forks in the 1800s. That's what we're spending our money on. That's absolutely ridiculous. How many people could we have helped with that $250,000, or what kind of projects could we accomplish with that $250,000? But instead, we're building Russian ship statues in Forks that no one remembers or no one really cares about. So I think that I'm definitely against raising the gas tax, and in fact, I'm for lowering it.
Okay. What is your position on tolls?
My position on there's not a lot of tolling in the 35th, but I think that having a usage tax for people that actually use the project, but herein lies the problem, is that you already get taxed for transportation once when you get beer tabs, license plates, and everything else that you get taxed for transportation for, and then you have to pay yet another tax when you go on the toll. I think that if the toll is just for people that use it, for instance, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, I don't think that people in Spokane should have to pay for a Tacoma Narrows Bridge they'll never use. So I think in that case, there is tolls are a good thing, but they have to be predictable. You can't be fluctuating them and raising them all the time like they do on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. So I think that they have to be low and predictable, just like our regular climate just like our tax and climate should be. They shouldn't be changing with the political winds to help people gain the upper hand in elections, which is exactly what Olympia insiders and career politicians do. They promote legislation that helps them in the next election or helps set the table for the next election so that they could hammer away on some issues. And I think people like me and people in this district are sick and tired of having their hard-earned money and their tax dollars used for political advantage.
So staying on the tolls idea, my next question was, are tolls a better way to get projects funded, in your opinion?
Right. I think tolls are they're a better way to pay for the project, but the tolls never end, and that's one of the problems. The tolls never end, and of course you got to have upkeep on the bridge, or so they don't collapse later on. But all over the country, and even in Washington State, we're seeing bridges collapse. So I think that part of reforming the DOT is to take a look at all the tolls and just to figure out exactly how best we serve the people in Washington and how best we keep those roads and bridges and all of our projects up to date so people don't get killed or get hurt just traveling to work or back home every day.
All right, next question on the list is, with the planned widening of Highway 3 through Belfair, in your opinion, will the Belfair bypass still be needed? And if so, how can we get the bypass funded and built?
Well, I think I answered that one, but I'll go over it again real quick. And I just think that, yes, we do. The widening is good, but I think that we do need the Belfair bypass. We've already paid millions and millions of dollars over the last, 40, 50 years to have this thing done. And so if we were to just quit while we're ahead, then that's basically sending a message to people that we essentially just wasted millions of dollars of your investment into a Belfair bypass that's been needed for a long time and still is. And I think that if we want to grow our way out of the Belfair sewer mess, that we're also going to need it. And the Belfair sewer doesn't just affect Belfair, it could affect the entire county and surrounding areas. So, I mean, it's a big deal. But yes, I definitely think that we need a Belfair bypass. And like I said, instead of putting it in the transportation budget, put it in the capital budget as a project, giving the money to the county so they could punch in the road would be a lot more effective way, and we could get it done really quick. And I think that as my opponent as Senate President Pro Tem and a top negotiating spot with the capital budget and the transportation budget, he's on the transportation committee, I think that it shows to his lack of energy and interest in things like Belfair or the Belfair bypass, because he could have easily gotten something done with his position, but he failed to, and he didn't. And I think that you need to send someone to Olympia with who's fresh, with a lot of energy, that could go in there with kind of a bulldog mentality and get things done. And that's what I'm planning on doing.
All right, well, shifting gears here, economic development, creating jobs, and attracting industry and business are also priorities. Do you have a plan to help create jobs and attract business to the 35th District, and can you summarize that plan?
Yes. Again, on my website, there's another plan for industry and economic growth. I think that if we were to see even a quarter of that plan pass through, then we would see significant improvement. But these are the things that I'm looking to do. I think that we should, back in New York, they did a 10-year tax holiday for new businesses. And all I'm asking for is a 5-year tax holiday for the B&O tax, half of what liberal New York wanted. And I think that if New York can get it passed and do it, I think Washington State should have no problem. So a 5-year B&O tax holiday for new businesses to get new businesses started. The low to middle income entrepreneur, they look out into a sea of red tape, and there's just no way that they could comply with it all. There's too many tax burdens upon them. And if you try to go start a business and you have through all the processes, you find out pretty quick that it's hard, and it stifles innovation, it stifles growth. And I think we need to tear away a lot of those barriers to get people back to work, and which is, it sounds kind of like a beat horse or a broken record, jobs, but really that's what it boils down to. The unemployment is really high here. It's higher than we're led to believe. It could be more like 20%, and a lot of people, like I said, it's a bedroom committee, they go out. And we need to revive old businesses, revive old industries, We need to maintain and make better the ones that we have, like the shellfish industry. We need to revive things like timber. And then we need to highlight the assets of the 35th District, to which we have a lot of. We have a lot of raw natural resources. We have a lot of land that's open to buy and use for businesses, and every time you get a new industry or a big business in here, you could count on 10 or 15 vendors coming in to support that business, and it's a domino effect. And I think that we could look at things that are even clean. If like software industry, we've had people look at the 35th district before, and we just couldn't get it done. We have to elect people that can get things done.
All right. Are you in favor of increasing the minimum wage? And if so, how would you propose to go about raising that wage and to lessen the impact on small businesses?
I mean, I grew up in a poor family in rural North Dakota, and it's rural kind of like the 35th district, so I understand how it can be. We didn't make a lot of money, and my parents had food stamps and were on welfare just so they could put food on the table for their families. But the ultimate lie here is that raising the minimum wage to $15 will ultimately help these poor people. It doesn't. One, $15 an hour really isn't that great of a living wage anymore. So in that case, you're really just comparing apples to oranges. And I think that it hurts the least productive in society, and that businesses, just look at McDonald's looking at starting the little burger ATM machine that you could order off of. I mean, that's someone's job that it took, because now it's more cost effective to do that. And I think that raising the minimum wage doesn't just hurt the restaurant industry. We got to think that's the one that's been highlighted through all this. But what about the trucking industries and the warehousing industries, where they make sometimes 3 to 5 cents off the dollar, and they're running razor sharp margins? Raising that minimum wage, people will lose their jobs. They'll be underemployed. They'll be in part-time work, and then that means they might lose their health care, and so on. There's so many unintended consequences of something that feels good. But I think that we've raised minimum wage before, and how many times do we have to raise it to actually do something good? We keep having to raise it and raise it and raise it over time, and at one point, how far do we have to raise it before we realize that we have to do something completely different than that? And I think that what we need to do is just get more people working and then grow our economy. And even though that's not the instant feel-good, something government can do a knee-jerk reaction right away to do, that's the hard work it's going to take to get more wealth into people's pockets, to get more money into people's pockets. And I think that reducing the tax burden on them and reducing the tax burden on the businesses would do a lot more to help people make more money than it would raising the minimum wage, which could ultimately end up in people's jobs. So I'm against the minimum wage. I understand the plight of people that want an increase in the minimum wage. I really do. But I think that sometimes the touchy, feel-good solution isn't the best solution, and sometimes good intentions have unintended consequences.
All right, Travis, thank you very much. Travis Couture, running for 35th District State Senator, prefers the Republican Party. Thank you for taking some time and joining us.
Thank you, Diedrich.